Hi, I'm Keshi, and I'm filling in for Clouds and giving you the narration this time since he's too busy to work at this project at the moment. Before we start off, I'd like to mention that everyone with a skill set to help us should contact us through the development group, which has a link in the description, since we need more help to make the project more epic. The thing we need the most are actors and narrators. Either way, onto the main stuff, there is going to be a traditional chapter exploring 3 potential shadow chapters and the events leading up to the epic final battle. It's going to be more brief than our more fleshed out stuff since we're pressed for time, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Chapter 7, The Blader's Creed. It's nighttime after the horrible events in the last chapter. Kenny slams his hands into a table in front of him. After learning of the events that unfolded, he calls out to Makoto, Rin, and Go. "How could you have been so stupid?" Makoto looks down sad face as Kenny continues. "You knew there were trouble brewing, yet you decided to go and challenge the very first mystery blader that pops into your path. Didn't you realize what could have happened? Even more so, what also has happened." "I'm sorry," Makoto answers, bowing his head in great shame. Kenny yells out, "Sorry doesn't cut it! How am I supposed to explain this to your father? Don't you realize Dragoon is not some children's toy you can play with as you please? It's the most powerful beat beast in the entire world!" Rin looks up from the scolding. "Coach, didn't you think you were being a little hard?" Kenny turned his side towards Rin and Go. "And you two should have known better! To leave him alone to fight such a superior opponent! What were you thinking?" Rin stared down, adding, "Sorry." Go looks away.
All of this wouldn't have happened if Makoto weren't so prone to showing off. If you ask me, it's like he never took his tournament seriously to begin with.
Kenny sits down with an expression of defeat. "This is not about the tournament anymore." He brings up the red flag card on the desk. "This is the card that girl threw to Makoto. It's a message from our newfound enemy." Rin and Go are surprised, yelling, "What?" While Makoto stands in silence. Kenny seems downtrodden as he reads it. It says, "You want Dragoon back? Meet us in the final match with your 2 remaining representatives. Winner takes all." Rin shines up. "You mean there is a chance to get Dragoon back? Finally, some good news!" Kenny signs and puts the card on the table. "No, this is horrible news. It proves what they pulled today was not something they did merely on the whim. It was all planned out ahead of time, down to the tiniest detail. This also shows that their purpose might not be the tournament itself, but to steal all your beat beasts." Kenny finishes as Rin looks shocked and goes serious. Makoto seeks some comfort and asks, "But this has happened before, hasn't it? My dad told me and warned me that people in the past stole the Blade Breaker's beasts, but you guys always got them back." Kenny is starting to sweat. "No! Never before did anyone manage to capture the most powerful beat of them all, Dragoon. There's no telling what might happen now, as the Red Fang has achieved something that all of our previous foes failed at." Makoto gets a look of despair as he's thinking, "It's all my fault. Thanks to me, Dragoon might be gone forever." Kenny attempts to sound more sympathetic. "Look, guys, I'm sorry if I came off too harsh, but you must all grasp the severity of this situation. Until we have found a way to fix this, you must all prepare yourselves that I might have to forfeit our spot in the tournament at any given moment if things escalate any further."
You have to be kidding!
Go clenches his fist and yells at Kenny.
You mean to say I have to risk my shot to go out in the finals all because that idiot Makoto screwed up?
"Go! You're going too far," Kenny says, rising up. Makoto stares down with tears streaming from his eyes. "Makoto didn't listen to him!" Rin says, looking at him with sympathy as he responds. "Go is right. I let you down. This is all my fault." Rin becomes sad. "Makoto!" Kenny chimes in, adding, We might still have a chance to get Dragoon back. I'm gonna have to contact Kai and ask him what he thinks. It might be possible for Ring and Gao to become strong enough to take on the Bladers that defeated the White Tigers, Jung and Neza. But it's a very risky proposition though, since we don't know if this ZU character is gonna keep her end of the bargain or if she'll participate herself. Gao heads towards the door.
In other words, it's up to us to fix that.
Rin looks at Makoto trying to calm him down. Makoto, we're going to get Dragoon back for you. Just you wait and see. Kenny finishes the conversation. We'll be heading to the tournament tomorrow morning. That way, I'll get a chance to contact Kai, but remember, you two must double your training efforts. And if anything looks suspicious in any of the coming matches, I'll cancel it all. Go glares angrily at Makoto before walking out.
I can't believe I ever lost to someone like you.
Kenny calls out, Stop it, Go! Ring looks at Makoto with a worrying face as they are leaving, while Makoto trails behind them silently as they all head off to bed. Kenny sits down in deep concern, thinking, It's bad. They still lack any kind of team spirit, and with a threat far beyond their level approaching, they are going to need it now more than ever. Even so, I still don't know whether I should tell them of him, Kenny thinks, as an image of the mysterious mouse appears in the shadows. Nighttime finally arrives in full, and as his two teammates are sound asleep, Makoto gives up leaving a letter upon his pillow. With a sad face, he looks at them and states, It was fun while it lasted, but I'm no longer fit to be a part of this team. Goodbye. With these words, Makoto leaves his friends, wearing a sad expression as he heads out to find his way back home. Makoto calmly walks down the grassy field in the dark of the night, thinks to himself, I still can't believe what happened. As he struggles up towards the heavy hill, he thinks back to when he challenged ZU, telling Go and Ring he should handle her on his own. As he remembers that, he thinks to himself in down-fret voice, How could I have been so stupid? He kicks a rock in anger, sending birds flying away into the dark heavens. Makoto looks mad, walking up the long hill with heavy steps, as images flash before him of his final opponent standing upon that roof in the sunset. Then he comments inside of his head, Damn ghost girl! If it wasn't for her, Dragoon would still be... His thoughts are interrupted as he reaches a crossroad with a 4-way sign on a roadside. The letters on the old sign are all worn out and written in Mandarin, making Makoto scratch his head wondering, which way was it? He moves his gaze back up the hill, staring with uncertainty. Should I turn back? He changes his mind and fixes his eyes on the sign. No, it's too late now. He finishes and heads for the bright long main road, but then looks into the direction of the darker, more eerie looking path, as a feeling overwhelms him. For some reason, I have this strange feeling that I'm supposed to go this way. He heads into the dark forest with dead trees and mist surrounding him, as he thinks, It's probably a shortcut, I'll be back home in no time. He walks along for several hours through the eerie forest with a bright full moon shining down on his path. Makoto stares at the dark cloudy heavens. What were I even thinking? It took me 3 freaking years to pass the preliminaries, and all of a sudden I think I'm good enough to take on the entire world. He remembers the moment Dragoon got stolen. Not to mention I lose Dragoon to the very first threat that pops up. Dad would have never messed up like I did. Makoto looks down in sorrow. What is Dad going to say? He sits down on a log by the roadside as he puts his face into his hands and says, How am I ever going to explain this? Suddenly, he hears something that sounds like a wolf's howling in the distance. Makoto looks up with fright and sudden trembles from the cold and fear. I better make camp and continue tomorrow. He moves around through the dead old trees into a small glade in the forest, and in the center of it, He collects twigs and firewood, getting to rocks from the old road, hitting them together. Burn, damn it, burn! Where is Gao when you need him? Makoto says to himself, as things are too dark for him to see clearly beneath a large trees, making him nervous. And as his stick bundle finally catches fire, he breathes out relief. Finally! But the relief is quickly ended, as he looks forth onto the trees before him. On the large trees before him, there are 3 carved-out faces looking like the masks of the 3 Red Fang members. The smirking Nezra, the angry demon-like Jung, and even cold and sinister girl that had stole Dragoon from him only the day before. Ziyu. It's them! Makoto stutters in fear, backing away on the ground. What the heck is this? He gasps terror, as the mask carvings are not the only thing catching his attention. There are metal hooks stuck in the trees that are rusty and stained red in color, as well as bundles of sticks tied together, hanging from the branches, flowing in the wind that just intensifies along with Makoto's fright as he looks at the 3 red fang faces staring down at him. He crawls back whimpering, "I want to go home now!" He bumps into a tree behind him and he feels a drip coming down his neck. He feels his neck and his eyes open wide as what he sees, blood! He backs away from the tree only to discover it's dripping with blood. On the top of it lies something that looks like an animal carcass or something kind of deer. Makoto gives up in total panic, thinking, "I have to get out of here!" As he runs away, while looking in the opposite direction, he bumps into someone. Makoto falls back hard and fixes his eyes at a ghost-like old man standing before him, his face hidden in the shadow. The man steps forward as his ancient-looking old face smiles up, in the light of the fire, declaring,
"You are finally here."
Makoto screams out in the night, "Ah!" and faints instantly. In the next shot, the old man is letting off an evil, cackling laughter and puts butter in a pan that he's put over the fire. Then he slams in a big chunk of meat into it, adding,
"The meat always tastes the best when it's fresh."
Makoto wakes up and flies away into the corner, pleading, desperately crying, "Please don't sacrifice me into your weird ritual. I'm too young to die." The old man looks puzzled.
"Ritual? I'm only having some freshly catched dinner."
Makoto gets confused. Dinner? Then what's with all the weird sticks hanging from the trees? The old man stares at them in surprise.
"Well, I'll be damned, seems someone came here before us. Back in ancient times, this glade was to a holy spot according to the Red Fang, often used for blood sacrifices to their sacred spirits. But personally, I like to view it as a really great location for a barbecue, especially in the summer."
Makoto gets up. "I'm surprised you know about the Red Fang, even so. I'm glad that you're not one of them." Makoto looks up at the stick swinging in the wind, thinking, perhaps this is the place where the Red Fang camped before stealing Dragoon. Makoto looks down in sorrow as his stomach growls. The old man smirks and looks at him.
"You seem very tired. I imagine you must have traveled very far, as there ain't any settlements nearby."
Makoto stares at fire with the meat frying in the pan. "Yeah, I'm really hungry too." His stomach growls as the old man laughs.
"I wouldn't mind sharing my meager meal if you promise to help carry the rest of the meat back to me, to my home."
Makoto shines up. "You have a deal, old man, but you also have to show me the way to the nearest bus station." The old man laughs, and the night passes along as they share the meal and Makoto tells his story. The old man finishes his dinner and brings out an old Chinese pipe, lighting it while saying,
"That's some mess you've caught yourself in, kid."
Makoto signs, whining himself off. "You can say that again." The old man gets up saying,
"No matter how much I repeated myself, it'll never be enough for you to learn."
The old man walks into the shadow as Makoto asks in an annoyed, surprised voice. "What do you mean?" The old man stops.
"All your life you've been looking up to your father so much that you yourself feel small, insignificant. As a result, you've been running from battle to battle, trying to be larger than life. And even after you've learned from your battles, you never stop to reflect upon the things you learn. In other words, the knowledge you acquire is worthless when you lack the wisdom to understand it."
"You're making it all sound so confusing." Makoto looks down. "If only things were simpler."
"Life is never simple, child."
The smoke flies in front of the old man's face.
"But you're making things more complicated through all the confusion you've put upon yourself and forced yourself to live with. You've set your mind about being some kind of world champion, not realizing that before becoming great one, must first worry about becoming good. Just like a child didn't learn to crawl before it tried to walk. You've forgotten completely what it means to be a blader."
"Oh yeah? What do you know about what it means to be a blader?" Makoto seems a bit grumpy as he packs the provision the old man has prepared into small bags.
"I know more than you could possibly imagine, son,"
the old man says, holding an old-fashioned Beyblade in his hand. Makoto packs the old man's things as he notices there are no guns among the packing, making him surprised as he turns around looking at him. "Wait, you're—"
"I've been waiting for you, Makoto Granger."
The old man turns around.
"Many years ago, a young boy wearing the same cap you're wearing now crossed my path. He were here on the journey with his father, a famous archaeologist at Suya Granger, your grandfather. The boy was your Uncle Hiro Granger, and I, Master Zhang Shi, were the man that taught him all about the art of the bay."
Makoto looks at the owl. "Wait, you taught Uncle Hiro?" Master Zhang Shi stares at Makoto, with piercing eyes showing his Beyblade.
"At our final meeting, your uncle gave me this Beyblade, Metal Dragoon, as a gift to me, and I made the vow that I'd help your family once more when the time was right."
Makoto gets up in shock. "You actually met Uncle Hiro? But he's been missing for ages. Where is he? What is going on?" Zhang Shi starts walking away, smoking his pipe as Makoto tries to stop him. "Wait! I want answers!" The old man keeps on walking, saying,
"Come with me. I want to show you something."
Zhang Shi leads Makoto up a long journey over the mountain behind them. Covered in mist, as they reach there, they enter into a cave where Zhang Shi lights a torch, taking an exhausted Makoto to a bedding, as he still has a lot of questions. Zhang Shi guarantees the questions will be answered in the morning, as Zhang Shi leaves and Makoto falls asleep. There'd be a transitional scene in the morning as Kenny finds out that Makoto is gone, and they have to find him. But at the same time, BBA Legacy needs to be heading back to the Battle Dome to not miss the chance to face off against the Red Fang in the final match. Thus, Tai and Chao volunteers to track him down and find him. The reason many of these transitional scenes are turned into briefings during the script narration video is that we don't really know how long we can make things, and there are still 3 shadow chapters to be explored in the end of this video. Thus, these scenes remain unwritten until the final product. Things will be more explored once we see how the project progresses. Makoto opens his eyes slowly as the light shines through the cave, revealing an internal temple similar to the one of Jian Bing's back in chapter 5. On top of an old altar, inside the temple sits Zhang Shi, sleeping and snoring in a lotus position. Makoto walks up to him thinking, "He can't be serious." Makoto shakes him. "Hey, old man, wake up!" The old man wakes up in shock, then gets up.
"Oh, you're awake. Finally. You shouldn't be wasting time sleeping when there is work to do."
"Yeah, you're one to talk. You were sleeping like a rock too, Makoto responds.
No, I did not. I was only meditating really deeply,
Zhangxi answers. Makoto adds with an annoyed voice, You were snoring! The old man smiles.
That was just my mantra.
Makoto facepalms. Yeah, whatever. Zhangxi looks up at the statue above him.
This is the temple of Meng Zhang. Do you like it?
Makoto stares up at the statue. Meng Zhang. That name sounds familiar for some reason.
It should. I've heard your great-grandfather talked about him a lot,
Zhangxi adds. Makoto looks up realizing, Hey, now I remember. He was that ancestor dude that slayed a mighty dragon and sealed it in our family sword. Dad told me about him many times. But what is this statue doing all the way over in China? Zhangxi chuckles.
Well, that ancestor dude of yours was the original Beyblader, according to legend. A great warrior and mighty hero, as well as a very close friend of Jianbing.
Makoto's eyes open wide in shock. No way! He was a Beyblader? I always thought he was a swordsman.
He was both.
Zhangxi looks to the side, showing a cave carving of Meng Zhang, piercing his sword through the chest of an even-looking regent-type character. Behind them are two dragons, one carved to look bright and the other one is carved to look shadowy on the regent's side.
The story has also changed a bit after being passed down so long, I reckon. It was not a dragon that your ancestor slayed, but the mighty dragon emperor that used the darker half of dragon.
Makoto listens with eagerness. Yeah, I remember Dad talking about facing the darker half of dragon on Demon Rock Island, I think it was called.
Yeah,
Zhangxi responds and continues.
Meng believed in separating the darkness from the light, unlike Jinbing, who believed in balancing it. He split the beasts using a special technique that can only be used by a sage-level blader. Then, he decided to seal them away once the darker halves ended up in the wrong hands. I believe the Saint Shields developed a similar idea, though taking it to a different extreme.
Makoto chimes in as he remembers something. Oh yeah, this reminds me that Ghost Girl told me their ancient leader was the original wielder of the dragon beat, and that he really rightfully belongs with them. Does that mean their original leader was perhaps this evil dragon emperor that you just talked about? Zhangxi starts walking away with a serious face.
I don't know. Could be? It's hard to tell for sure when it comes to events that unfolded a stunning 10,000 years ago. What I do know, though, is that you shouldn't underestimate the wrath of the Red Fang. I know that better than anyone.
How so? Makoto asks with curiosity. Zhangxi looks back at him with a hint of sadness on his face.
It was the wrath of the Red Fang that led to the end of our clan a great many years ago.
He turns around, looking at him.
I am 123 years old. I've seen my fair share of bloodshed. I don't know for sure what failure of his really made Meng leave his clan behind, but I'm glad his bloodline was not wiped out completely.
Makoto is confused. So that means you'll train me, right? I'm gonna need it if I'm gonna become world champion. Zhangxi signs and looks down.
You haven't heard a thing I've said, have you?
Makoto responds with a question pleading. Is that a yes? Zhangxi turns around, walking away slowly.
I can't train someone who's not a real blader.
What? Makoto shouts out, running after him. You have to train me. How else am I gonna be able to return to my friends? Zhangxi sits down, meditating in a lotus position.
That's exactly why you're not a true blader. You left your friends in the first place. You ran away from battle, just like you've been running away all your life.
Makoto panics. Alright, I'll admit it, I screwed up big time. But I've got to set up alright. I got to get Dragoon back no matter what.
I've taught bladers for 100 years. There is time for action, and there is time to stop, and reflect on the actions that you've taken.
Zhang Shi comments, making Makoto impatient. Blah blah blah, come on old guy, train me already.
A true blader would rather face defeat and certain death before denying his nature. In other words, do you accept that you're a blader and you vow to remain a blader no matter what happens from this point on?
Zhang Shi states. Makoto pleads and bows his head. Yes, 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 please train me, wise one.
Fine then, give me your Beyblade.
Zhang Shi says calmly, reaching out his hand. Makoto puts Dragoon MSUV in it, instantly thinking, yeah, that's right, Beyblade maintenance comes first. This guy clearly knows his stuff. Zhang Shi takes the blade apart and states,
I'm gonna give you 3 weapons of victory before this training is over.
After he's done taking the Beyblade apart, he gives Makoto the weight disc and says,
Here, go take this. And sit with it in the corner, look at it, and concentrate on it.
Makoto is confused. What? Why? Zhang Shi yells out,
Just do it!
Makoto goes into the corner and sits looking at his weight disc all day, looking at it as the day passes along. The old man spends his day reading old newspapers and laughing at the funniest. He also plays some golf and drinks some tea. The more Makoto sits there and stares, the more annoyed he is. This old guy must be pulling my leg. Zhang Shi walks up to him behind his back.
Are you making friends with it yet?
Makoto nods, thinking the old man is crazy. Yeah, we're becoming great friends. The day passes along, even more as Makoto gets up in anger, marching away. I've had enough of this joke of yours. I'm going home. I'll never become the king of Beyblading, sitting around looking at stupid weight discs all day. Zhang Shi looks disappointed as he sees his student walking away.
You want to be king? A king is but a servant, a slave to his duties. Who are you serving? You haven't even been treating your blade with a proper respect. You don't even think you can win against the Red Fang without your beat, not seeing the power within yourself or your blade.
Makoto walks away angrily. I've had enough of your crazy talk. You can't teach me anything. Zhang Shi lifts up his blade upon his fingertips, his shadow being cast upon the mountain wall. Makoto sees the blade balancing on his finger and turns around saying, Yeah, that's all very neat, but I don't have any use for a parlor trick. Makoto is interrupted by a sight that makes his heart stop for a second as he sees the blade starting to spin on Old Man's finger like it's got a wheel of its own. Makoto is stunned. How? How did you do that? Zhang Shi's voice echoes throughout the mountainside.
In the old times, Master Meng taught a technique called Nin Li. The ancient ones believed that if one's spirit is attached enough to an object, you and the object become one. It's based on the philosophy that all are one. This is how you can be able to move and use your blade even if your bit is not in it. That's why bladers have always been taught to care about their blades more than anything else, and feel so distraught when they are destroyed. It all began with Ning Li, the technique I was trying to teach you.
Makoto looks humbled. I admit, I'm a bit confused, and it sounds kinda silly to move objects with your mind, but I gonna believe what I've seen and learned from it. Please forgive me, Sensei, Makoto says, walking back up the step. Zhang Shi smiles at him.
I think it's time for a battle.
This is where we end up the official written out stuff of the chapter. The conclusion is that Makoto spends a lot of time training there, learning 3 lessons until the Master Ning Li fully changes, will have to be made if some shadow chapters were made. For now, I'll just summarize the lessons and the 3 battles until we get more clarity. Lesson 1 involves Zhang Shi asking Makoto what's the purpose of a warrior helmet. To protect you from getting hit, would be Makoto's answer. After this answer, Zhang Shi would add the weight disc to carved wooden version of the other parts, making Beyblade out of wood, one that would be totally out of balance. In the battle, Makoto would be confused as to how he could be able to win with such a blade. He'd have a hard time keeping balance, struggling to use the weight disc to protect him, each hit being sent away as the balance is very light and easy pushed around. Eventually, Makoto would realize the meaning of the lesson. The helmet is to protect the most important tool of the battle, your head. The test of the battle is to learn balance, not to win. And the smartest thing to do in this situation is to avoid the fight, since you have nothing to fight with. As soon as Makoto finds his balance, Zhang Shi applauds him and ends the battle with the lesson in mind. The second lesson involves a riddle as to why the greatest warrior wears a mirror at the back of his shield. Makoto, now determined to win, says that it's to look at himself in the glory of victory. Zhang Shi modifies the blade once again, adding the blade base, but instead of the ordinary attack ring, he'll add one made of glass to the statement. I need you to win this time, or else I'm not teaching you anymore. This puts Makoto in a panic mode, losing his cockiness, as his theory is now put to the test. He quickly realizes he cannot get hit a single time, as the impact would break his attack ring. This makes him all worried, and sends his Beyblade running away. With Metal Dragoon chasing him, determined to end the battle, Makoto eventually realizes the purpose of the mirror. It's to see the enemies behind you, and to use as a final resort. Makoto imagines a warrior turning his shield and using the reflection of the sun to blind his enemy and strike him even without a weapon. In this case, Makoto uses the sun to reflect up on the glass of the blade, blinding Zhang Shi in just the right moment and makes him accidentally get a stadium out. To which Zhang Shi laughs, saying, "Very good, you've earned your Beyblade back." He gives the Beyblade back in full with an ordinary attack ring on it, saying this knowledge will be his sword. Now his next and final lesson is to practice with his blade until it feels as though the blade is just another part of him, and just like the sword, is just an extension of the swordsman's arm. Once he's done, they'll battle in the morning. The morning comes, and Makoto and Zhang Shi fight each other as the sun rises. Makoto being at a disadvantage, constantly having to struggle to fight back, as now his master seems to blade at a level much higher than before. Zhang Shi comments, "When you strike, you don't just strike with your blade alone, you strike with your entire being." As he suddenly unleashes the digital Metal Dragoon beat, similar to Metal Trigger, Makoto gets shocked. How can he fight a beat beast without a beat beast himself? Makoto looks into himself and realizes this is exactly the challenge he was afraid of, having to face up to it, taking all the lessons he have learned, using all he has, eventually defeating Zhang Shi, who did not hold back, but still smiles, since he knows Makoto did good in defeating him. Makoto thanks him for everything, as he has to hurry up back to his friends and take responsibility for his actions. They need him in the tournament as Makoto runs down and promises to return someday. Zhang Shi looks sad at him running down, adding his words, "Even the smallest of people can change the events of the world. I hope I've done enough to amend for my mistakes, hero." Makoto runs down the stairs. It wouldn't be long now before the evil one reveals himself and challenges your father to the final battle. Until then, I pray your father finds his spirit once more, before it's too late. Even you may still have a greater destiny ahead of you, before all of this is coming to an end. Makoto Granger. Now we discuss the shadow chapters, meaning chapters of events that should be happening, but we don't quite know for sure if they will be drawn, if we ever release this in a full manga. It's always more fun to imagine this as a full series though, as things would feel more completed with the shadow chapters in place. One branch of shadow chapter events would be ideal before Makoto leaves the team and after the lecture. Rin and Gao would have to train hard for their upcoming battle as Makoto is benched. Their upcoming opponents could be Pakistani team of powerful HMS specialists. In the first battle, it'd be Go stepping up and winning. The emphasis could be put on how Kenny had originally not intended to use Go until the finals, as he were their secret weapon. It should also be mentioned that they can't move on taking Young and Neza if Ring isn't strong enough to take down the Pakistani team leader. Much like the North Korean battle was focused on making Makoto reaching another level, the Pakistani team would be about Rin reaching the proper speed and power to compete on a world championship level. Part of the focus could be on making Gao start off with the notion of, now I'll see if this team was ever good enough to compete in the first place, to perhaps reaching the point of respecting Rin for her victory against one of the most feared team leaders inside this tournament. This would also help add more reason as to why Makoto is gonna start to feel he does not deserve to be in a team anymore, as both Ring and Gao are surpassing him. So, to top it all off, he'll let himself down as well, failing at his dream ultimately, and it's him leaving that are most important thing to focus on, which would actually fit the best as a cliffhanger. The second Shadow chapter would follow Taiki Ichihara as he's escaped death under the fearful claws of Brotherhood assassins, using all the artificial beat beast given to his minions, using them to shield himself and his teammates as everyone got away. Taiki would eventually be found burned and scared on the ground by his former BBA trainer. Taiki would now be beat less after encounter and spends time with Kane, having to recover and blade without a beat emphasis. That is good contrast to Makoto's story. He'd also get his beat beast back by the end of the chapter, swearing revenge on his enemies. This would work well as a cliffhanger, either that of the moment when Zhang Shi spins the blade on his finger. Some emphasis would be put on Tai and Chao hopelessly trying to find Makoto, which isn't as easy as it sounds. Again, the chapter changes depending on what is done. The mountain might have to be further away if all Shadow chapters are made. Aside from this, we'd need a Shadow chapter involving Gao and Ring fighting in the last battle before the face-off against the Red Fang. They'd fight against a high-respected Indian team that's extra strong this year, being built of masterful beat beast users, using their beat beasts from Hindu mythology. It could be mentioned that the usual tradition is that there is strong rivalry between Pakistan and India before the winner tend to step up to fight the White Tigers. Their leader would be mad at BBA Legacy for robbing them of this opportunity, thus they got extra strong against them. Lots of focus should be put on Gao in this case, and his need of having to reach the high level he used to be in the Abbey, and the level they are going to have to need if they are to fight the Red Fang. These events would fit in well between the 3 battles that Makoto fights against Zhang Shi. And with this, we leave you and see you again in Chapter 8. Subscribe, share, comment, and keep yourself updated for the next release, because it's really going to heat up at this point. Thank you for watching.